Hi, a very good afternoon to everyone who are listening in today during your very busy lunch hour. We wish to thank you for taking the time out uh, to listen to us. And a quick introduction, I am Damon from Nanyang Business School in Graduate Studies. I'm in the Outreach and Admissions team, and together with me, I have Shereen, who's also from Graduate Studies. And she specifically managed the outreach efforts and the admissions effort for our Nanyang Executive MBA program, right? Both of us wish to wish all of you a happy new year, a great start. We hope you have a great start to the year, and that that this COVID-19 pandemic will become a thing of the past soon. So without further ado, I know everyone is tight on time. We shall start our info session proper. Right, so a brief note on our agenda for this afternoon. We'll do a quick introduction of the Nanyang Executive MBA. Of course, we would not be able to touch on everything in this short half an hour. So if you have any questions specifically that we did not address during our presentation, please post it to us. There's a Q&A box you can see on your screen. Feel free to type in your questions when we are going through the presentation. We will get to the questions at the end of our sharing. And of course, from 12:30 onwards to about 1 p.m., our current EMBA participants will be joining us. They will be sharing with you on their thoughts about the program and why they chose the Nanyang EMBA and why they started the education with us. All right. So quickly, we are situated within Nanyang Technological University, and NTU, of course, has been consistently ranked as one of the best in the world. We have been ranked by QS World University, a very well-regarded ranking institute. We are the number 13 university in the world as per their 2020 ranking. And if I'm not wrong, we've been in the top 15 for a couple of years now. And this is really considered quite a feat, considering that we are also one of the youngest university who are in this ranking. So we have been ranked at the number 1 university by QS for university under the age of 50, and we've consistently obtained this number 1 ranking for the past 7 years. And really, this is a testament to the quality of education our students, our participants will be receiving here in NTU. Okay, now, Nanyang Business School, Shereen, we are, of course, within NTU. What really makes us unique? Why should people choose Nanyang Business School for their business education?
Well, I think, Nanyang Business School is not just any ordinary business school, like, what you see everywhere else. But I think what's really special about Nanyang Business School is that it's situated within the NTU ecosystem, like you mentioned. And that is so unique because we are able to draw on the research that goes into technological advances, into innovation, and digital disruption, and bring this back to the business school where, we enable leaders to harness these concepts for better decision making. So the ethos of Nanyang Business School is innovate, lead, and transform, where we really seek to develop an innovative mindset, enable our leaders to lead with impact, and transform the organizations that they are in. And we'll share more on this later.
Yeah. Further down in our presentation, I think that's where we get into the really unique points about the school and the program. Now, moving on, I think we should really show people who are the faculty members behind the scene making all this possible, right? So of course, we have a lot of faculty members here in Nanyang Business School. If I'm not wrong, in fact, we are the largest business school here in Singapore. So we can't possibly list out many more other faculty members on our screen today. We only managed to list a few. So right in the middle, you can see on your screen, we have Prof. Sia Siu Kian. He's our Associate Dean in Graduate Studies. So he oversees graduate studies and all the different master's programs we have under undergraduate studies. And he himself, he is a specialist. He teaches process redesign and enterprise transformation, and he's very, very well sought after by many organizations out there who are looking to get into digital transformation, or enterprise transformation. And if I'm not wrong, he also several years ago when Gojek was just starting up, he was one of the main consultant for Gojek. On the far left, we have Prof. Tan Ju Singh, who teaches Leadership 4.0 in our EMBA program. Am I right, Shireen?
Yes, he developed this module actually. So Prof. Tan has his backgrounds in cultural intelligence, negotiation, and psychology. But a couple of years ago, he has branched out into Leadership 4.0, which is one of the signature modules we have in the program. So this course is specially developed by Prof. Tan for the Executive MBA program, and essentially it teaches you how to be a leader, a better leader in this digital age. I think besides Prof. Tan, another notable faculty to mention is Professor Vijay Seti, who was, accorded the best business professor in the world by Economist Intelligence Unit a couple of years ago. And what's amazing about this is that he was up against the giants like Wharton and INSEAD, and it's amazing that he got the award. And he's another one of the faculty who also teaches digital disruption in the program.
Right, and but on top of all this, I think Nanyang Business School is also considered a thought leader in cultural intelligence. We really embrace that, and we teach this in many of our programs. And you can see right there in the middle, we have Prof. Guido Genasso, who teaches cultural intelligence. And there are several other faculty members who are also specialists in this space in Nanyang Business School. There are many people we are not able to cover, but we, of course, hope that you can, Google up on our faculty members, find out what is it that they do, and what are some of their achievements in the business world, right? Moving along, I think we also want to touch on the vast global alumni network we have here in Nanyang Business School. So just in Nanyang Business School alone, we have over 52,000 alumni located over 94 countries in basically all the continents in the world. You see on screen are just some people we've put out to highlight. So on the left, we have a few female alumni members. We have Jill Lee, who's the Chief Financial Officer for SOZA, with the headquarters in Switzerland. We have a Member of Parliament in Ted Kin, who graduated from our Nanyang Fellows MBA program. We have Chua Jolene, who was awarded the Forbes 30 Under 30. She graduated recently from our Nanyang MBA program. And on the right, we have, of course, a minister, a senior Minister of State, Mr. Zaki Muhammad. He graduated from our MFE Financial Engineering class many years ago. And we also have, I think I wish to highlight Mr. Jimmy Ng, was our MBA student many years ago. He was also behind the scene. He was the man behind the scene in the transformation you see at DBS Bank when they go fully digital. So for those who are here in Singapore, of course, you're keenly aware that today, if you're banking with DBS, you no longer walk into their brick and mortar outlet. You basically do all the banking on the phone, right? And yes, Mr. Jiming was really the key man behind all this. In fact, before the COVID-19 pandemic, just late in 2019, Mr. Jiming came back here to NTU to do a sharing in front of many NTU staff and students, who had the privilege to sit in for his session. So he was sharing with us on the importance of the shifting culture, for DBS in order to embrace this transformation within the bank. And this is all very exciting, and I think we always encourage our alumni to return to share with the community at large, right? And here are some EMBA alumni members. Shireen, would you like to share a little bit more about some of the members you see on screen here? Yeah.
Yes, once again, we have the female women alumni on one side, and of course the gentlemen on the other side. But really, I think what we're trying to show you here is how senior these people are, and how careful we are when we choose the people who come into our program. So, we have people like Evelyn, for example. She's an entrepreneur, and she brought her company. She set up the tech version of her company after the program. And then you have Dr. Koh Hao Teck, who was headhunted and, tasked to set up the hospital in Shanghai. And I think someone whom I really like to mention here, Dr. Chia Van Deth, he's a minister in Cambodia. But when he joined the program, he actually had a vision to set up a university in his home country with the idea to bring quality graduate education to his country, to a developing nation like Cambodia. So today he's the founder of the American University of Phnom Penh, and he's also a minister of Post and Telecommunications in in Cambodia, sorry. But I think really what we're trying to say here is the kind of people we are looking for. We are looking for people who want to make a difference in society. And we are also looking for diverse professional backgrounds to add value to the program.
Yeah, I think to answer the age-old question, that the audience may have, a lot of them are always wondering, hey, I'm not really into business. I'm doing something else right now. Am I right for the program? And in fact, what you see on screen, we have Dr. Koh Hao Teck. He's a trained medical doctor, right? And he opted to do an executive MBA at the peak of his career, knowing that he's ready to take on a lot more responsibility, and that's why he was one of the team member, the original team members that started Jiahui Health in Shanghai, which is a hospital, well-known hospital now in Shanghai. We have also Oliver Plotman, you see on the top right hand on our screen. He is in fact he's a trained aviation pilot, right? And he flies planes in the early part of his career. And now he's also doing something very, very different. He's the managing director in Accenture. And he, of course, took on this position after completing our executive MBA in 2015. So these are just some of our alumni members we wish to show you, but of course there are many, many more. And we of course hope that you can get into a conversation with us so that we could maybe show you people who are from similar background from you, with you, and then see how they develop their career with an executive MBA with Nanyang Business School. So a quick look at graduate studies on a whole. These are on screen just the programs that graduate studies oversee. We have many, many programs here. Just MBA alone, we have five different MBA programs. In fact, we have many different specialized masters. As you can see, we have accountancy, which we are famed for, business analytics, which we are also very well known for because of our computing, our engineering background in the university. So what's notable is that despite with the pandemic in 2020, we brought in more than 900 participants into our graduate programs who are in these various programs you see on screen. So while we have a pandemic, we were able to get into, to get the programs to start, to run the programs with really minimal issues. Shireen, I understand that many schools early in 2020 were in fact hesitating whether they should start their program or not. Is that right, Shireen?
Yes. Well, to be honest, Damon, I think, even we had the same question on our mind. Should we shift? Should we not shift? But I think, what really gave us the confidence to start the programs on the actual start date, without shifting the deadlines, was because we knew that we were ready to deliver the program, whether it's online or face-to-face. So we had the capabilities, and we also knew our faculty were able to do that. At the same time, I think we also had the foresight to see that the pandemic is not going to be over so soon. The regions were just getting affected, and they were just facing the first wave of the pandemic. So it's not deferring it wouldn't have been a good solution, because the pandemic was here to stay. And I think now, 1 year on, we are much better at this. We've gotten a head start from many schools. And at the same time, I think we are also able to give the assurance of what the game plan is if the pandemic continues. So we do have a plan.
Yes, exactly right, Shireen. I think this really gives a lot more certainty to people who wish to be on board with us, and that's the kind of assurance we can give. In fact, I also wish to add that while we have a pandemic still ongoing all over the world, we were able to start with physical classes from November onwards. So we did make that promise to many of our students that yes, we'll start with physical classes. And we did start with all those physical classes from November 2020 onwards. And, many of our students were, of course, delighted to be able to do that with us. The experience, of course, is always slightly different and more exciting when they could see the people in front, right? So, moving along, I think we again wish to highlight to all of you, really what makes Nanyang Business School unique, and what is the difference? What are you gaining from Nanyang Business School that you are not able to get from the other business school whom you are considering and evaluating for an executive MBA program? Now, Shireen did mention about our tech and innovation ecosystem, and that is very, very true. Our faculty members really know what they are doing here. They have been here many years with us, and they know this is a tech university. And that's why our curriculum, the course design, usually incorporated with all these innovation pieces, right, Shireen?
Well, in fact, the EMBA curriculum went through a major redesign about 2 years ago. We started on that about 2-3 years ago. And as of last year, we have launched the new curriculum in totality. So again, here, our ethos of Nanyang Business School, innovate, lead, transform. What do we really mean by it, right? I think this is where, we want to bring all that innovative practices back to the business school. There's a lot of research that goes into NTU, right? We have, centers with Alibaba, with Rolls-Royce, and we have all these driverless vehicles going around campus. But it's not something that you'll see in a lot of business curriculum, the digital part of things. So again, we want to ensure that our graduates, are able to innovate for the future. They have a curriculum that can last them for at least the next 5 to 10 years. And then, of course, at the business school, leadership is something that is really important, something that we look into quite a fair bit. And here is where we want leaders who can lead with impact. So, leaders who look at the greater things like sustainability, for example, making a difference in society, able to address the broader issues in business. So this is what we inculcate in the curriculum as well. And finally, something that's really close to our hearts, cultural intelligence, and able to lead with cultural dexterity. So whilst a lot of our leaders are mostly based in Asia, we cannot deny that they lead global teams. They go on to roles globally. So it is important that you're equipped with the knowledge in how to lead transformation, but lead with cultural dexterity as well.
Yeah, and you'll be able to see why, through this this ethos to innovate, lead, and transform makes up the special parts of our Nanyang Executive MBA program. We are really putting together a program, designed to help and enable senior leaders to lead for many, many more years. And you will be able to see here, because of what we do, in tech and innovation, we are also able to partner with some of the most prestigious universities in the world. And we have strategically put together this partnership, where we bring our EMBA participants to UC Berkeley for a segment, and also to Tsinghua University in China, right? And for those who are in the know, you will see that these schools are also similar. They bear almost similar DNA to Nanyang Technological University, where they have a good history in technology and innovation, right? And of course, what we are trying to bring to you is not a very technical masters. All right, some people, when they hear the technology, the innovation, so often they think that, hey, is this a specialized master's? No, this is in fact still a business degree. We are trying to bring in concepts like digital transformation, which will enable leaders to transform their businesses, to reimagine, how they're able to do businesses over the next couple of years. And with an Asia-focused curriculum, you are definitely certain that if you see your career, you see your businesses here in Asia, which will be at the forefront of economic growth for the next 5 to 10 years, this curriculum will definitely be very, very relevant. And the connections you'll be able to get from our EMBA will also be very, very important as you continue building on your businesses here in Asia. Okay. Now, I'm just being very mindful of time, because at 12:30, our panelists will be joining us. So we're going to take you through the last couple of slides real quick. Okay. So this is how a typical class in our Nanyang Executive MBA looks like. Shireen, would you like to quickly do a bit of sharing on these different numbers we see on screen?
Yes, so as you can see here, diversity is very important to us, and the quality of class profile is also very important. And the reason for that really is because in any good EMBA program, your learning is not one way from the faculty, but also through your peers. You learn a lot from them. So we take a lot of pride in our class profile. We have one of the more senior class profiles around, with an average of 17 years of work experience. And, we just in our last class of 35 participants, we had about 22 industries being represented. Seniority-wise, I think we are also one of the more senior class profiles around, with about 35% of them at the C-suite or business owners level, and close to 55% of them at the VPs, GMs level. So again, we want to assure you that, we're very tough in screening our candidates. We bring only the best quality into the program. And besides trying to see if we can help you achieve what you hope to achieve, we are also trying to see what you can bring to the table and offer to the rest of your classmates.
Yeah, I think that's very, very important. What we look for with our candidates in the EMBA program, what can they contribute to the program? I think that's extremely important. And just bear in mind, note that, and incorporate that thought into, the admissions process when you are applying to Nanyang EMBA. Okay. And this is how our schedule looks like in the coming year, right, Shirin? Where we have 5 different segments
Yes.
spanning across 13 months. Yeah.
Yeah. So each segment is about 2 weeks long. You come for intensive classes and you do these modules in these segments. 3 of them conducted in Singapore and the other 2 in UC Berkeley in China. But what I would really like to point out here, and why we call it flexible schedule is because whilst the program is designed to be 13 months, you do have the option to do it over 2 years instead, because we do understand you guys are busy. Pre-COVID days, there's a lot of travel. Sometimes work exigencies come up and you need to miss sometimes a segment, sometimes a module, a couple of modules. So you don't have to give up your postgraduate dreams. There is that flexibility to do it with the next intake. And up to a certain point, you may have to defer your graduation. You may get the opportunity to still graduate with your cohort. But whatever it is, you do have the option to do it over 2 years if your schedule needs that. At the same time, you'll see that we have leadership coaching throughout the program. This is something that's brand new in the program. We started this with group coaching, but now we have personal leadership coaching for each of our participants. And really, you'll see that there's a lot of emphasis on leadership and driving digital transformation in the program. Strategy projects at Nanyang, that's another very interesting module that we have. It's not only a consultancy project where you get to act as real-life consultants. You work with an actual organization on a project. But at the same time, you also have the opportunity to bring a project from your organization into the program. And we have seen this happen many times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Many of our senior leaders, accomplished leaders in the program bring these projects, whether or not it's for the EMBA cohort or for the other MBAs to work on. I think they've been actively looking at these different projects, because we understand, time and resources are tight in all organizations. And sometimes getting a consulting company can be pretty expensive. So it's always a good option to consider getting the business school to be involved, where we put together many talented individuals into groups to work on such projects for your organization. So think about it. If you're joining our program and you have a project that you wish for our EMBA or our Nanyang MBA participants to work on, bring it to us. Our faculty members would love to, work on this and make it possible for you. Okay. And of course, we touched briefly on leadership coaching, and it's increasingly important for senior leaders to really master this ability, this skill, in order to work in a very high performing organization. We know today that within an organization we have the different generation, right? Generation X, Y, Z, the millennials, etc. So coaching is, of course, what bridge the necessity to get the kind of performance and outcome from the talents, the different talents that make up the organization. So we really emphasize a lot on this, on leadership coaching, and it is throughout the EMBA program, as mentioned by Shireen. So you can expect to see module 1, module 2, module 3, module 4 going through in the program. And on top of this, I understand that our EMBA participants are also assigned a dedicated coach, right?
Yes, they are.
And to work on their own personal career development or their own personal achievements. Now, moving along, I'm just looking at the time. We have our admissions and fees here. So application to the program is really very straightforward, a good undergrad degree. If English is not the medium of instruction used at undergraduate level, or if you're at a postgraduate level, a TOEFL or an IELTS score would be required. A TOEFL of about 100 or an IELTS score above 6.5 or above is required. Minimum 8 years work experience, as Shireen mentioned earlier in one of our screen. Most of our participants have more than 15 years of work experience. We average 17 years. So seniority is usually not an issue here for people joining our program. And we are already approaching our round 2 deadline. As you can see, looking at our application deadline, round 2 deadline is 31st January. It's end of this month. So that is also our scholarship application deadline. So if you wish to apply to be considered for scholarship, we really encourage you to apply over the next couple of weeks to make that deadline, right? The program starts in mid-April, but our round 3 deadline is 1st March. So try to meet that if you can, all right? The application does take a while to complete. Usually it's not completed in one sitting. It's over a few days because of the essays requirements. So we really want you to sit down and think through this and speak to us. Speak to Shireen, speak to myself, engage us on the site if we can be of any help to make this application step easier for you. Tuition fees, of course, as you see on screen, 100,000 Singapore dollars, excluding GST. Application fee, when you submit the application, is $200. You submit it online to us. We have various scholarships available. And Shireen, if I'm not wrong, we also have various grants and some special corporate discounts, right, Shireen?
Yes, so there's the 10% NTU Alumni Grant. At the same time, we also have a corporate grant for those who are at least partially sponsored by the organizations. So, have a chat with us to find out more about these grants and scholarships. And if you can, speak to your organizations also about, giving you at least a partial sponsorship for the program.
Yeah, and yeah, in order to be eligible for that grant, I think you need a partial scholarship,
Yes.
partial sponsorship from the organization,
Yep.
right? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, and we will be taking some questions, but I understand that it is 12:30 now, and
maybe we can take the questions at the end of the alumni presentation. Well, not alumni yet, participants sharing.
Yes, I think, yes, we will come back to those questions after our panel session with our current participants. But what I wish you to note is contact here on screen. Take note of her number, take note of her email address. I think if you have any question and if we are not able to, answer them because of the time constraints we have today, she will be answering them over the phone or an email to you. Okay.
Yeah, so just feel free to reach out to us.
Yes, please do that. So, if I'm not wrong, both our current EMBA participant, Judy and Santosh, they are just waiting around in the corner. I think that's just coming on screen. Yes, hi. Hi, Judy. Hi, Santosh.
Hi.
How are you? Now, before we start, I'm just going to do a quick introduction for our audience, all right? If you don't mind. So, as you can see on screen, we have Judy Hing. Miss Judy Hing. She's a HR director. with Edwards Life Sciences. It's a very interesting company that does heart valves for medical patients. All right, Judy. And Judy is also a returning alumna. So she graduated from Nanyang Business School several years ago, and being a HR specialist after she graduated, she made the decision to come back to Nanyang Business School to do her EMBA, right? And on the right, I'll do a quick introduction on Santosh. Santosh, he's a director of internal audit. He's a finance director with Nokia, a telecommunication company. He graduated from one of the best university in India, University of Mumbai. He's also a chartered accountant. He's through and through finance specialist. And you can also hear from him later on why Santosh, despite already well-versed in the world of finance, decided to do an executive MBA at this point of his career, right? So, Judy, why don't we start with you? We always say ladies first, right?
Sure.
So I hope my introduction was sufficient and just. Perhaps you want to share a little bit more about what you do with Edwards Life Sciences?
Yeah.
Yes.
So my name is Judy, and I have been in the HR profession for more than I think coming close to 25 years. So been doing various kind of HR, startup HR, regional HR, etc. in different industries, medical device, petroleum, and my last organization before Edwards Life Sciences was actually Rolls-Royce, where I did my third and my fourth startup. Not too certain if it's going to be my last. So been having a excellent learning time and fulfilling journey in all my various careers. But I, just to share with all, why is it that I'm returning to go for an EMBA at this stage is because I've been in Edwards Life Sciences, a medical device firm, for more than 8 years plus. And, I'm sure everybody knows the pace of changes, the technological advancement, digitization, etc., are going on so rapidly. And medical device is a highly regulated industry. So, when it comes to regulatories, things move a little bit slower. So having been, in the same organization in this industry for more than 8 years, there's a bit of a hunger and thirst for learning where you want to learn new things. So, and I thought that, embarking on an EMBA would help me fulfill the learning needs. And I've not regretted since then, really been enjoying my journey.
Yeah, thank you, Judy. Santosh, how about yourself? Would you like to do a quick sharing on what you do and why you think this EMBA is right for you at this point, at this juncture of your career?
Yeah, sure. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes.
So I take care of internal audit. So I'm the director. I'm based in Singapore. So I have teams in China and India. So I take care of Asia Pacific, Japan, Greater China, and India from my internal audit perspective. As you know, there is a number of projects within a year that we execute. And essentially, we are trying to ensure that the control environments across the different countries and the functions are actually operating as the way they should be. And we suggest improvements to those policy procedures, and we highlight any non-compliance or fraud-related aspects for further investigation and making sure we address those. So that's a bit what I do. I've been with Nokia for about 18 years now. So I started with Lucent Technologies, a telecommunication company, and went through two mergers. So one was Alcatel and Lucent in 2006. And then in 2015, Nokia acquired Alcatel-Lucent. So I've been in the same company, but it's still not the same because of the mergers, acquisitions, the different cultures. So been through a lot in this 18 years period, despite being with a single group company. Telecommunication sector is interesting. You all know what's happening in the 5G space. plus the cloud, IoT, all of this coming into picture. A little bit about why I venture into EMBA. Last 10 years, I've been in business partnership roles. So I've always been working in tandem with the business leader, supporting the business KPIs. So I've been like a finance business partner. And I've done many roles within the company. So I've been a country CFO, cluster CFO, Southeast Asia region CFO. I've done adjacent businesses around enterprise channels, and also I've done a product CFO. So I've kind of covered quite different domains over the last several years. During these business partnership experience, I start to see something different about myself, where I can actually do things beyond finance. And I can really come in as a business partner to give more insights to my business partner, and also start to influence some of the business decisions and the strategy, where to invest, where to allocate more capital. So I was already starting to do that. But somehow in my discussions with the business leader, there's always something that was missing, and which was a formal kind of an academic background and frameworks about how you define strategy, how you do certain aspects. And all my business leaders were from B schools. They all had a certain language that they would come up with. So I wanted to first, equalize myself to be at the same level as my business leader. So that was one gap that I saw. And also I see that from being a director now, getting to the VP, there is a certain gap, which I want to also address in the coming years. And that's why I opted for an EMBA at this juncture. In fact, I kind of perfectly understand where the audience today is. I've been in that space for at least a couple of years, I would say, right? So a couple of years, I've been in that space of deciding which MBA is right for me, whether it's the right time. So I kind of perfectly gone through it. So when I was invited for this session, I was kind of feeling that, where I was maybe a couple of years back. And I wanted to do this in 2017 or 2018. And I kept making the decision, when I would do it. And then we had a second baby. So then I said, not now. I want to spend some time with the newborn. And then after she was about 2 years old, that's when I really went for it. And there's a big story. I will share a little bit more later in the discussion. But there is always this pre-sales kind of decision. You kind of contemplate, and you kind of make a decision to enter. And then during the course itself, it is also very rigorous and challenging. And then post you complete your graduation, what do you want to do with that? And where do you want to go is another aspect that you need to have clarity about. So I'll like to share more.
Thank you, Santosh. Wow, that's really good. And yes, we hope to draw out a lot more from you. And if the audience listening in during this lunch hour has any other questions for the panelists, please put them in, and hopefully you can get some insights, and it helps in making a decision, right? So I understand, you both of you are in the businesses where you saw this accelerated pace of change, right? Of course, the pandemic just moved everything a lot faster. The need to transform, to reimagine the business and reimagine the processes accelerated during this time. How has this shifted your idea about how the EMBA is delivered? We know that the pandemic started, and then you say, I still want to do the program. It's going to be online. How has that affected you? And how, any one of you could start first, Judy or Santosh.
Yeah, I don't mind sharing. Now, when I signed up for this EMBA, it was I think in November, where I met Shireen. Yeah. So at that time, there's not a lot of hype about COVID-19, etc., pandemic. But in January, I think it's luckier for our batch is that we managed to have a couple of on-site classes in NTU, so we were able to bond with the batch, etc. But unfortunately, and I use the word unfortunately, which I think that is important for the audience to know and maybe consider, is that, this EMBA has a session that actually attracted me, and that was the tied up with Berkeley and Wharton, the segments itself. And I actually did go to Berkeley, but I was thrown out of the campus on the third or fourth day. Santosh laughing. So you heard the story. So because, US were a bit slow in understanding the COVID-19 situation, but in the Berkeley campus, what triggered the sudden change was actually one of our classmates got sick. And suddenly, whatever sickness that you have, people will just look at us and say, from Asia, it's COVID-19. I mean, the kind of stigma and fear that seems to be, residing in the minds of many people, at least the perception. So henceforth, I think on the fourth day, which Sharin was aware, we were asked to leave the campus. And we actually had to take the courses online, the classes online, with one of them, which was unfortunate, a sharing by a leader, which we did online. And then subsequently, of course, I have to return back with my classmates back to Singapore because, the COVID-19 situation seemed to have worsened. However, I have to salute the universities, both NTU and Berkeley, in the way that they have managed the situation, the ability to pivot. Now, to be honest with you, this is not a cheap program, all right? It's a lot of investments, time and resources. And, when we heard that it's going to be online, etc., just like us buying any goods, we'll feel that, hey, we are getting the shorter end of the stick. So there's a natural cognitive dissonance, I would call it. But surprisingly, the lecturer, the professors in both NTU as well as Berkeley were able to pivot very quickly. To be honest, I enjoyed the Berkeley segment that was carried out online in Singapore. And they were able to make it so interesting, and they never shortchange us in terms of in learning, because they still invited the Silicon Valley, leaders, entrepreneurs, venture capitalists to get into the lessons and share their experiences with us, and with the opportunities for us to ask many questions. So I think that was really an eye-opener at how organizations, and no offense, how academic institutions, people, whom I used to think that is more of a kind of a government kind of culture, they were able to pivot very quickly. So from that perspective, I think, that's really phenomenal. And I really appreciate that. Now, of course, when you talk about pivoting and adaptability, the paces could be different, and that's something that, we have to take into consideration as well when we decide to embark onto this EMBA program, because no matter how, you still have to be prepared that technology is key, but, there are times when, it may not be so smooth, where there are some challenges in connectivity. So that's something that I think we have to grapple with and be very flexible, because nobody is prepared for this pandemic. So just my little sharing.
Thank you, Judy, and thank you for being very, very candid with the audience, because we could see a lot of questions about, people asking whether the classes are going to be online, whether it's going to be physical, face-to-face, etc. So I think this really helped people understand. And in fact, you went through a program when the pandemic just worsened everywhere at the same time, right? And we didn't put a stop or a pause to things, and we carry on because we truly believe that we are capable of doing so. Santosh, how about yourself? I mean, what experience do you have? I mean, you went through the same thing with Judy, yes? And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think for me, I had a personal situation as well just before I entered into the program. So I was expected to relocate to Shanghai end of December, early January. I took this role of internal audit in November 2019. So the whole of 2019, I was preparing for my move to Shanghai, right? And everything was ready. My goods already reached there. My flight was already booked. And then around 27th of Jan, I get a note from the school in Shanghai that the school will be closed for 2 weeks. And I kind of thought, if it is closed for 2 weeks, then there has to be something more than just the normal kind of a pandemic. So this is really big. So I told my management that I'm going to stay back in Singapore for a while, see through this situation before I decide to go to Shanghai. So we had already vacated our apartment. We were actually in a hotel, and then I made this decision. So it was quite challenging, that first few months. But I think even before the pandemic, I wanted to make 2020 count for me in terms of starting on a program, right? So if I were to be in Shanghai, there was a different school that I was looking at. But when I decided to be in Singapore, then there was no doubt that I have to get into NTU. So that's how it started. So it was in an apartment, serviced apartment, where I decided that I have to go for it. And all my essays and everything, actually, I completed while I was in that serviced apartment for a few months, trying to get my contract changed from China to Singapore back, and then get into an apartment. So I kind of spend late nights in that serviced apartment doing all my essays, preparing for the interviews, and all of that process worked during those 2 months, February and March. So it is something that I would remember forever, and I think it's a fantastic move. Getting into the program. I would not say COVID was the reason for me to kind of start, but because I anyway wanted 2020 to count, and I think it was one discussion with Sharon as well, where she said, "Yeah, do make sure you start something in 2020." So that was helpful, because then that you have someone to also encourage. And I think in a non-agnostic way, right? She was not saying join NTU. She was saying make sure you start your journey on an MBA. So I kind of pleasantly surprised and liked that approach. And I was actually planning something in China. There was an institution called Seeds in Shanghai, which I was planning to do, because I would be in Shanghai and I did not want to travel so much for an EMBA. So that was why I was choosing that school. But again, for me, it's I kind of, in hindsight now, I realize that it was the best thing to do, because otherwise I would have been spending all my time on Netflix or something, watching, the series and stuff. I mean, I love to do that as well, but I think in a pandemic, the idea was that you come out stronger when all this thing gets over. So it's more on the recovery side. So by the time the pandemic is over, by let's say mid this year, we also graduate from the course, and then you are set for the next step. So that's how I thought about it. So certainly, as Judy said, I think it's expensive. We all have a certain expectation of what the program is delivering. But then when suddenly you have to take this program online, there are certain disadvantages. For example, in a face-to-face, the warmth of meeting people during the breaks, having chit chat over coffee, having those reflections, definitely some of that was missed. But I think I also agree with Judy, where we had a chance to meet the entire cohort as well, because NTU managed to organize some special events where people could come together, right? So you have the online sessions, but then you also kind of supplemented it with one day where everybody comes together, which is one of those Future X sessions, for example, is also something that helped for us to meet. And then we had hybrid classes as well, so where Singapore students will be in the class, and then the overseas participants join through Zoom. Of course, we had some initial challenges because we are not set up to do this. So just like all of us pivoting, NTU is also pivoting from face-to-face to go into the online space. It's not easy. But I think that's what I like about being in this program, is that everything can be discussed. Everything can be addressed together, right? So you're part of the solution rather than you taking a position that I'm not getting what I was told, right? No, but I think everybody is in this. I mean, a common enemy is COVID, right? So that's important to
No.
acknowledge.
Yeah, and then I think from your sharing, Santosh and Judy's what she has shared, I think both of you thrive in adversities. That's what we got out from this, really, and I really salute what the two of you were able to do. I mean, we have a question coming in from Daniel Buckley. I think this question I thought was very, very relevant. He asked, how do you find juggling your work and the EMBA program? Did you have to make sacrifices at work to accommodate? Would you, maybe Judy could start with this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I think this EMBA program format actually suits me. And the reason, I spoke with Shireen at great length when I was trying to understand the program amidst all the other, among the shopping of EMBA programs that I was looking at. And I like the structure of this program because, you are able to be dedicated and focused on the lessons during, a period of time. For example, it can be 1 week to 2.5 weeks, depending on the number of subjects that you are taking. But I use the word but. The critical criteria is to ensure that you have the backing and support from your organization and your bosses, because they need to make sure and support you when you are away full time doing the lessons, and you are only able to tend to the work either at the end of the day, or after the completion of the week long or 2 weeks of programs. But when I compare, I have seen many people taking part-time EMBA program that's conducted during the weekends or after work. It is very tiring. And what's important is that this is such an expensive program. You want to make sure that you get the most out of it. You really want to make sure that you're able to absorb the learning. So henceforth, luckily for me, I was able to get the support from the organization, and they totally left me alone when I was, having my lessons, etc. So that helps a lot. And of course, your own colleagues and your peers, etc. Because when you talk about development, especially in our organization, it's a partnership. And partnership is not just you and the organization, partnership within the department as well, or the function which you belong. Because, where your load is lessened, somebody has to take up the additional load, and vice versa. So I guess I'm quite blessed that I get the support of the organization and my own colleagues.
Thank you, Judy. That's very insightful. Santosh, how about you?
Yeah.
I mean, do you find juggling work and study a huge challenge?
Um, I would be very honest, without a doubt, it's very, very challenging. And I think for me, it's been very challenging. I think on the work side, the pandemic also brought about, remote way of working and not being able to get to office. An internal audit, until this pandemic, I don't think people would imagine that this work can be done remotely, right? Because normally we would go into the field, sit with the client, review all the documentation, and that's how the audit used to be done, until this pandemic. But when this whole thing happened, obviously, we have to do everything over phone calls. We are not on the field, so it's not the same. Misunderstandings, how we communicate, all that had to be, relooked at. Also, the scope that we undertook in a face-to-face versus what we could do remotely is very different. So you need to balance all of that. So work-wise, the pressure really was there. We did not reduce any of our quality standards, or we did not reduce the number of projects that we would do. So whatever was set at the beginning of the year, without considering the pandemic, remained throughout the year, and we delivered on that, right? So work pressure was massive, and also people had a lot of emotional ups and downs. I mean, they were feeling lonely. These are people who always used to work in groups, and now they are sitting alone, doing their own stuff, and not able to have face-to-face, not able to have those coffee chats. Warmth was not there. So I think the pandemic did bring a lot of stress. I mean, I myself gained a few kgs of weight, sitting at home throughout. And so there was a lot of those sort of issues as well. So definitely, it's a challenge. When you think about the program, I think if you only think that you will attend those 3 weeks of classes, then you're mistaken. I think 1 month before, you need to start reading the material. 1 month before, okay? And these are 15, 20 pages case studies, and 7, 8 of them for every kind of course. And then during the session, you have group work, you have class work, you have to read the case study for the next day, because you got to be prepared. You want to make sure that you come prepared so that you can get the collective learning of everybody. And then after the course, there are assignments so that it helps retention and application. So 1 month before and 1 month after the course, you're busy. So you need to be mentally prepared that it's not just those 2-3 weeks. It's actually starting 1 month in advance and 1 month after the course. And by the time that finishes, by the time the assignment finishes for one segment, you're already starting to see that next segment's documents are already loaded into the systems. You're already preparing. So that, I think, to be honest, you should think that this 1 year or 1.5 year that you spend for this, there will be a disproportionately high amount of time for work and studies. And I think family, you need to consider that it will have an impact. So I think Judy mentioned alignment with the line manager, definitely, but alignment with family, your spouse and children, absolutely essential. I mean, you will not have the same amount of swimming time, same amount of dinner time. I mean, if you're like me, you want to do the best in your work, best in your assignment, then you're on a toss, because you'll be constantly thinking about all of this. So the real time I got some relaxation last year was just the last few days of the year end. In fact, I just finished the SPAN project. In my whole group just finished the SPAN project this week. So after 4 months, we finished the SPAN and we give the presentation to the sponsors. But I think there's no regrets. I mean, it's a fantastic journey. I mean, you come out, you come in with a few things that you want, or what you get out of being in the course is way beyond what you could think or imagine. So you think you want to get different perspectives. You think you want to get the theory and practice. You think you want to build the network. But I think what you take out after being in the course, I mean, it's like you don't even know what you don't know. So you really take away a lot. So I think that's been my experience. We are now 65% complete in the program. I think Judy a bit more. She joined in Jan. We joined in April. I joined in April. So another 35% to go. So I'm kind of capturing on that momentum and wanting to get it done within this year. But hey, you do have the option to pace yourself. So you don't have to go through that intense schedule. So you have the option to spread it out over a longer duration. And I think this is what Shireen alluded to earlier, that you don't have to finish, in that cohort. You can defer, some modules and take it according to what fits your schedule.
That is so true, Santosh. Thank you, Judy. And yes, I think for many overachievers like yourself, right, Judy and Santosh, many people just want to do the best in whatever they are involved in, and it is no surprise. And in fact, we have always told people, we tell people all the time that this is a rigorous EMBA program. People who are joining the program. And we try to, in fact, give an estimate. So the pre-reading before every segment starts, try to limit to an hour each day, 3 weeks leading up to that program, right? And that should do. And of course, if you're an overachiever, it is no surprise that people would put in more hours to the assignments, to the pre-reading, etc. But thank you so much for sharing. And this is really honest, candid sharing by our current participants in our program. We also have other questions coming in. These are probably reasons and expectations, reasons why you join an EMBA. So we have a question, for Judy and Santosh. The majority of the attendees join the program to accelerate their career in existing industry or change their industry. I think instead of speaking of for the majority, I think maybe you want to speak for yourself, what do you see yourself doing when you opt to join the EMBA?
Okay.
Judy,
Yeah.
yes?
So maybe for me, joining this EMBA is really a lot more about learning from different perspectives as well. Because I believe that as a HR, you do need to know the business very well and keep pace with the changes. And at the same time, I do not deny that, yes, I have also considered other potential functional areas because I was approached for some potential operations leadership roles or even business strategy roles. So that's some of the key reasons why I decide to take part in this EMBA program. And I agree with what Santos mentioned. There's a lot of pre-work, etc. But because this EMBA program comes at a time for me during this COVID-19 period where, I think it's a loud period where I don't have to travel as extensively as in my, during the times pre-COVID, I travel about 70-80%. So right now is you don't get to travel. So that's the best time for me. And because of the pace, the more focus, more opportunities to focus, I realized that, it's not just about learning from other functions, about other business areas, but it's also learning from my classmates. Now, people like Santosh and quite a number of people, all from different industries, as well as different C-suite leaders. And that gives you another additional, learning from the different perspectives of all these senior leaders in other industries and other organizations. So that's something that I truly value and something that, it's, I appreciate because NTU takes the effort to decide on the demographics of the classes. Yeah.
Thank you, Judy. Now, I understand both Judy and Santosh, before Santosh answer, both Judy and Santosh has something else taking place in a couple of minutes time, right? They have a meeting to go to, etc. So I will let this be the last question for them, and then we'll let them go, right? So Santosh, maybe you want to add on to why you decided to do this.
I mean, I hear this question more as a return on investment type question, right? Wherein what happens after, and what do you do? So I think I answer this from two perspectives. So first is from what I've seen of my colleagues who have done other EMBA programs. Some of them clearly, from a return of investment point of view, they move out of their current company and they join new companies. Obviously, they have a salary increase aspect which comes along with it. They feel more confident. I think the point is your worldview changes and you think that there's a lot more options. There's a lot more potential that you have. And so you want to explore. So that kind of drives you move out of your company. So that's one that I've seen. The other is moving from a specialist to a general management. It's easier in your own company, I feel, because you have already a lot of networks. There are people that who already know you and they know that you do well as a finance person. So they are willing to give you that opportunity to move into general management. So I've also seen people after doing the MBA in the same company move and pivot into something different other than their specialist function. But I mean, these are just a few examples. I mean, I wouldn't say these are the only ones, but I think a lot of people have gone into entrepreneurship, wanting to start something of their own. So that's also very much part of what people want to do. I mean, I'm one of them. I want to be a social entrepreneur. I wouldn't say that loud before this EMBA, but now I feel a bit more confident that, yeah, it's something that I can pursue. So I think personally for myself, I see 2 or 3 parts. One, moving from a director to a VP finance in a few years, that's a very natural progression within Asia Pacific. The other thing that I see longer term is moving into general management. So this is why I wanted to do this course, because I feel I can contribute beyond finance. After being a business partner for many years, I think I can be good in strategy. I can be good in as a COO. So there are other kind of opportunities that I see for myself. I mean, finance is, I would say, second in command on the business. I mean, in a company, they're very involved with strategy, everything relating to numbers come to them. So they are in a privileged position, so they get a much more wider view. In internal audit, I do have a much wider view of many different areas as well. So those are some of the things that I see for how I see this EMBA will help me for my next step. I hope it kind of gives you some thoughts on how you would be able to get your ROI in the future.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. That is really, really helpful sharing, Santosh and Judy. Now, I understand, all right, at the beginning when we say, we want you on the panel, we promise to let you go because we know you have a busy schedule today, right? So thank you again for taking the time to join us to speak to the audience today. We will, in your absence, try to answer all the questions we see on our screen as much as we can before the session ends. So Judy, Santosh, thank you again, and we hope to see you in class. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you for the opportunity. All the best for everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year too.
Happy New Year too. To everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, so thank you again. Well, we have a couple of more minutes before we end the session today. Am I right, Shireen?
Yes, so I think we can take a few more questions.
Yes, I think we have several. Shireen, would you like to start with maybe one of those we see on our screen because they were put in during our presentation? Yeah.
Yes. So there was a question on the percentage of the program that's done online, face-to-face. What's going to happen with the overseas segments? Is travel still possible even for the local segments? So I'll take these questions, in one go. So last year, quite a fair bit. So everything up to March was done face-to-face. But of course, when the circuit breaker happened, everything had to go online. And that happened for a bit. And then in August, again, some of it went online. Some of it went face-to-face because we were still being quite cautious with face-to-face classes. However, what's going to happen this year, provided there's no circuit breaker in place, but things are very hopeful at the moment. What's going to happen is that classes will be hybrid. So what hybrid really means is that classes will be face-to-face for those who are able to make it for face-to-face classes. And primarily that will be those who are based in Singapore. Classes will be conducted online simultaneously for those who are unable to travel in. So whether or not you can travel in for classes, this is a question we really cannot answer at this point. I think in all likelihood for April, it will be face-to-face for those who are based in Singapore, but those who are based outside of Singapore, you can expect that it will be online. The overseas segments, we are also quite hopeful that they can happen face-to-face. This is because the China segment is in November this year, and the US segment is in March next year. So, we are all hoping that things get better. And I think the signs are very hopeful as well with the vaccine coming in that we can move back to face-to-face classes for the overseas segments. However, if this does not happen, then it is likely that it will be online. But I think, something to really point out here is that it's not something that's going to go away so soon. So the question you really need to ask yourself is, if you're based out of Singapore, is how long are you willing to wait to hold on to your postgraduate dreams? And at the same time, I think, even, with COVID getting better, is it likely to go away totally? And there are a lot of other considerations as well, besides just the travel restrictions. So how long do you want to wait for this? And I think it's something that we realized also is that we probably need to embrace some form of online learning. It has its advantages, which we have seen in COVID. It has its advantages, and at the same time, it's probably something that we need to embrace for a bit. moving forward, I would say.
Yeah, that is so true, Shireen. And about the part on whether able to travel to China and the US, I think right now our planning is for our participants to travel to China. In fact, we are already working out that plan and making it almost certain. But of course, if things can change fairly quickly in this pandemic, right? So if it remains constant, yes, right now the likelihood to China is very, very high to Tsinghua University at the end of this year. And in fact, if for example we do have to choose to do it online because things worsen instead of getting better, our participants will have that flexibility and that option to choose to do that segment in the following year, right? So that is important to note, and this flexibility is extended not just because we're in a pandemic, but because the EMBA is set up to give that flexibility, right?
Yeah.
So keep our fingers crossed. We really hope that everyone is able to make that trip to China and the US. But yes, we will.
But I think,
Damon,
what we want to assure you as well is that we're journeying through this with you, and there's a lot of uncertainty out there, but we want to assure you that we have a plan, and we react really quickly, and we understand the situation and your concerns. So I think that is something we really want to assure you. Yeah.
Yep, that's so true. So we have a question on the requirements to apply and qualify for the Women in Leadership Scholarship. Okay, I'm well. First of all, you have to be a woman applicant. that's just. Right, but yes, I think the Women in Leadership is a very well sought after scholarship amongst the different scholarship titles we have in Nanyang Business School. In fact, we are ranked. We were ranked at one time by Financial Times as the top 10 MBA for women around the world. So yes, we are one of the well sought after MBA for women applicants. So to apply, I think there's no difference to how you apply to the other scholarship. It's awarded based on merits, and our scholarship committee will evaluate your application to that scholarship in accordance to the criteria we have set up on our end. So putting in a good application, writing a good essay would be important in that aspect. Having a good interview when you are invited for the interview would be important in the evaluation of that scholarship. So there are really no other ways to get yourself awarded that scholarship other than doing really well. So there's really no difference other than being a woman. Okay. There is a question on may I have more information from Manoj on corporate discount and scholarship. So yes, we have various scholarships available, and they're all merit-based. We are awarded based on how we see your application. The scholarship committee reviews your application and the performance you put in during the interview. About corporate discount, Shireen, would you like to do a quick sharing on that?
Yeah. So we do have corporate discounts in place, really to encourage employers to send, their high potential staff for programs such as this. So for corporate discount, we have a 15% corporate discount on the tuition fees, and that is accorded as long as you have at least a $20,000 sponsorship from your organization. And this is something you need to declare before you accept the offer to the program. So upon application, you'll be asked about it. And then later on, we just need your company to endorse that they do have a scholarship of at least $20,000 for you.
Yes, and that would significantly, of course, reduce the tuition fee payable during the program, right? This is extremely attractive, and if I recall correctly, quite a number of our past participants,
Yes.
last year's participants,
Yes.
did get this corporate discount because their company were very keen to also partially sponsor their education. So yes, I think we encourage all of you who are considering an EMBA at this point to have a conversation with your line manager, with the HR department on this possibility. All right. Now we have a question from someone who is anonymous. What is the key difference of this EMBA compared to an MBA from INSEAD or NUS? This is always the question, isn't it? What sets us apart and what is different? Shirin, I believe during the presentation, if you listen in, you would have caught that nuances we've shared. So really, I think that the key difference here is we are putting together an EMBA program that is going to enable senior accomplished leaders to take on challenges such as digital transformation, handling disruptions, and elevating the business standards and being relevant for the future of work, for the future of businesses, for Industry 4.0. I think this is what we are able to do, and we are able to do this very, very well and very confidently, because at the same time, we know we have that wide and vast ecosystem of NTU to tap on, right? I think we are bringing in faculty members from other schools, for example, to co-teach in some of these courses that are introduced in our EMBA program. And this is really made possible because we have that ecosystem to rely back on. And, our faculty being very, very involved in research are also able to identify trends, that are coming out in the next 5 to 10 years. And these trends will be invaluable. And this kind of sharing by our faculty members will be invaluable for somebody who's looking to, unlock opportunities 5 to 10 years out. And that is really the key reason why many people opt to join our EMBA program, right? And there is another follow-up to that question. What are the prerequisites for EMBA, and are there concerns for younger participants at mid-management level joining EMBA? Perhaps Shirin would like to share a bit more on this. Yeah.
Well, the prerequisites, on the table, what we have: at least 8 years of work experience, 5 years of leadership experience, undergraduate degree, and so on, right? But here, I think, if you would like a more detailed consultation or something that's really personalized more to your experience, send me your CV. I'm going to put my email address in the Q&A button or in the chat group, so you can send me your CV and then we can talk a bit more. But generally, yes, we do have some younger participants in the program with fewer less than 17 years of work experience. For sure, we do have people with 14, 13 years of work experience as well. But I think this is where we want to have a deeper conversation with you to find out more about what you're currently doing in the organization, what your experience is like, and at the end of the day, again, like what Damon said earlier, it's about what you bring to the table. And sometimes, that's where you really have to sell yourself in your application. Yes, you are younger, but what do you have to offer to the class? that justifies an admission into the program. Because, as much as you want to learn from your peers will also want to learn from you. So we believe all of you come with your own unique experiences. And this is what you really need to bring across in your application.
That's exactly right, Shirin. Thank you so much for helping to answer that question. I think we have also a question from Daniel Buckley. I think this is a very relevant question. Many people will be looking at it. Do you think the EMBA would give the kind of career progression that would not have been possible without it? I think absolutely. I think this question was meant for our panelists who left. But just so you know, Daniel, we have seen so many cases. Shirin has been with NTU, working with the EMBA cohort for the past.
Don't say how many years.
For the past close to 8 years or more. I've been handling admissions work here in NTU in graduate studies for the past 6 years, and I think both of us, we have seen and heard for ourselves the number of transformation, the kind of progression our EMBA participants made with the EMBA from Nanyang. I think that gives us really the kind of confidence to also make the kind of sharing and make the kind of claims that yes, it is. In fact, I wish to highlight one example. There was a lady who was already a senior director in a HR firm here in Singapore. She joined the EMBA program, and when she graduated, in fact, she was hoping to take it easier because she felt a little burnout by the EMBA while juggling the EMBA and her work. But at the end of the EMBA, she got an offer she could not refuse, right? She was made a partner with one of the big four consulting firm in the world. And she was she told us specifically that she was given a pay hike. She was made an offer for a pay hike of close to 40%. And she was already making very good money. And she felt that, there was an offer she couldn't refuse. And so she took it up. And, the last we heard, she was very, very happy. Yes, so these are just some of the possibilities, post EMBA or while you're doing an EMBA with us. All right. So I hope we answered that question, Daniel.
I think, beyond the career progression that you see very obviously, right? I think a very simple analogy here is, with the program, you really open up your mind a lot more because you get diverse perspectives. Many of you actually come from a particular domain or industry. But coming into a program like this, we're exposed to many different professional and cultural backgrounds. That actually opens you up a lot more. And at the same time, this program also aims to develop your leadership and strategic skills. So I think, plainly, a very plain analogy is when you with an EMBA or the EMBA behind you versus another person who is, all things equal except for the EMBA. I think it's very obvious to see, which person is going to be put up for promotion, really, because with the EMBA, that opens up your mind a lot more and builds upon your skills. You will be able to become a better leader, a better strategist at the organization.
Exactly. So let's move on to the next question. We see on screen, are there any individual assignments for each segment apart from the group assignments? Right, Shirin, would you like to take this?
Yes, of course. Without a doubt, there are many different assessments in the program. We had a few questions related to assessments as well. So you will see class participation in every single module, and every single module will also have their own assignments or exams. So in NTU, we don't do a lot of exams in the executive MBA program. The reason for this really is because we want you to apply what you've learned back to your organization, back to the industry. So you will have a lot of assignments to work on. Some of them could be group assignments, they could be individual, but generally you can expect a mixture of different assessment components in each module, and they would be class participation, group assignments, and or individual assignments as well. It really depends on the module, on the faculty, and what is needed for that module. But like Santosh and Judy also mentioned earlier, you're given your pre-readings a month before. You have a month to prepare accordingly for your segments, and you're usually given anywhere between 2 and 4 weeks to complete your assignments thereafter.
Thank you, Shireen. I believe we have a few more questions, but I'm not sure. Are we out of time, Shireen?
I think we can take
one last question.
One last question.
Yeah, before we end it. And for those of you who put in a question, and if we did not get the chance to answer them, we will be dropping you an email, and feel free to also drop us an email if you have more questions, all right? I'm just gonna go back to the page where we have Shireen's contact. Yes, you see on the screen. So please feel free to drop us an email. We'll be happy to answer them. Now, I think we will have one last question on let's see, on class diversity. Is class diversity affected since overseas participants are unable to travel in? I would say no. So to answer that question, in fact, we have really a number of participants who are attending classes online from different countries. For example, we have someone very, very senior in Japan, and this was really quite a breath of fresh air when he told us. And he's somebody very senior. He was a CEO of a big insurance company, a big global insurance company, and he's based out in Japan. He's in his 50s, and when he heard that we are going online with classes, he embraces it. He was like, yeah, sign me up for it. I want to experience this. I think he wanted to do it because he also understands that as a senior leader in the organization, he wants his entire organization to also embrace the change, the shift in how work should be delivered and how work can be done. So yes, he participated despite us telling him that it would be online. In terms of diversity, I think we saw more than close to 15 or more than 15 nationalities, and really people coming from various industries joining the program. Now, the truth is we set out from the beginning to build a class of about 35 to 40 each year. So we don't intend to have a very big class because we believe in a good faculty to student ratio. So in the first place, we wanted an intimate class. So from this intimate class, I think what we are doing is we are also curating, making sure that the talents admitted into the program are really right and will give the kind of contributions and diversity which will make each of these cohort really, really special. So we want you to be assured that this is always what we set out to do and what we intend to do. So you can expect to see the same year to year. Okay. All right. So with this, I'd like to thank all of you, the audience, for listening in to us during your lunch time. We hope we've been a good companion with you together with your lunch. And yes, reach out to us if you have any question, and we really appreciate you taking the time to join us. Thank you, and stay safe and have a good start to 2021.
Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year once again.
So bye for now.